Hello guys, my name is Angel and welcome back to a new episode of Dev++. So in today's episode, we're going to continue our project with NodeJS, Express, and Typescript. This time we're going to talk about deployment, production deployment. What we're going to use for deployment is going to be AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So let's start. These are the things that we're going to be doing today. First of all, we're going to review why we're going to use AWS Elastic Beanstalk. We're going to continue our NodeJS project that we created before. Install the AWS EVCLI, which is the one that allows us to interact with the Elastic Beanstalk API. Setting the project, doing some tweaks here and there in order to make it work for Elastic, and then just do the deployment and test. We're just going to need some basic knowledge of Node.js, terminal, an IDE, and a simple HTTP client. So just go ahead and start. So why AWS Elastic Beanstalk? First of all, Beanstalk is my preferred way of deployment applications, web applications, and APIs. It's very simple. It manages everything for you. It's a managed service from AWS. It's simple. It's fast to set up. It has an automated deployment, so it puts like the virtual computer, the load balancer, install the OS and everything. Everything can be set up or configured via configuration files. It's completely integrated with Git or code commit from AWS if you like to do that. As I was saying, it has auto scaling and load balancing, so you can set up policies in directive to increase and enlarge applications, the size of your computer, or the amount of instances that are serving your application in order to keep up with the traffic that you're handling. It has built-in monitoring and logs, and as I was saying, it's extensible in a way that with configuration files you can install new libraries, you can add additional services, tweak things here and there in order to make it work. So let's go ahead and do that with our application. So first of all, let's open our node or terminal in our web storm with the project, right? So I'm just gonna open my workspace, NodeJS Express Typescript application, right? So first thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna test that our previous application is still working, right? Let me check out the package.json. We have a start script here. We can start. I'm gonna open my web application. I have it open already here. It starts in the port 3000. We got our GET request. You can see that it's still working. We got our login for generating the token. Right? Let me copy and paste this token in the GET request. If we put it here, we see it and it's still working. Perfect, right? So the second thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna install our AWS EVCLI library. We're gonna do that using pip, PIP. That's a library from Python to install dependencies. This package, this CLI tool is built using Python, so that's why we use pip in this example. So I'm just gonna install AWS EVCLI. Takes its time to collect caching system, yada yada yada, install dependencies. Takes just an extra few seconds. Okay, everything is done, so we should have enabled the command EV, right? So if we type EV help, perfect, we have it there. Right. Second thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna create some security credentials, right, in order to interact from the CLI with AWS, right? For that, I already created a user. I'm just gonna create some credentials for this user. My user is the Dev++ user. If you're familiar with AWS, you just go to IAM users, create the users, and let's create some security credentials for these users. So I'm going to create a new access key. I'm going to tell them it's going to be a connection through the CLI. any tags. I don't need any tags. So perfect. I have my access key, which what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up in this file, which is an environment file. Just name it .env.aws just to keep it separate. I'm just going to paste my credentials here. Access key and the secret access key. Just copy this. Secret access key. And I'm going to indicate that the region is going to be the one that I am. This is Ohio. So this is US East 2, right? So once I do this, right, I'm going to read the environment variables with a command called source. I'm just going to read the file, which is going to load these environment variables into my context in the terminal. This looks like this because I use the fish terminal. Remember, if you use something like Bash or any other terminal interface, you have to use whatever syntax they want you to use, right? With this, I can execute my evlist in order to check if the application has environment, but I haven't created an application yet for my project. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm gonna init, I'm gonna say US East, so it was US West Oregon, right? US West 2, which is in the number 3, right? It's gonna ask you a couple of things. I'm gonna say select an application to use. I'm gonna say like create a new application. The file name is that, the exact name of the folder and the projects. Is using NodeJS, yes. Which version of NodeJS I want to use? Let's go with Node 16. I don't want to use code commit. I don't want to set up right now SSH login, right? So I created the application. If I go evlist, now I should see my application. Oh, right. Evlist is just for listing the environments inside my application. If we go to the source code, we can see that a .elastic beanstalk was created, and it contains a config.yaml file that includes the name of the application and some other important parameters, right? Some other configuration parameters, right? So the first thing that I need to do is create an environment inside my application. Remember, I created an application and then I create environments. This is very useful if you manage things like different production environments or staging environment or testing environment or QA environments. You can separate those by different environments in Elastic, right? So let's do this. We're gonna create our first project. Let's call this the same thing as the application, with the difference that I'm gonna call this main, right? I'm gonna append the dash main with the name of the branch in order to create my first environment. So this takes a few minutes. So let's try to fast forward this. Cool, so we created our environment, right? NodeJS Express TypeScript API main. So let's first do some tweaks before we can actually do the deployment of our application, right? So this is a list of things that we need to do here. First of all, we're gonna change the package.json. We're gonna change the star script because this is what actually Elastic Beanstalk will start when you upload the application, right? So it runs this script as a default. You can change that, but for now, let's use the default, right? So what I want to do is run node this app.js. Why? Because that's the script that is going to be here when we transpile the application into JavaScript, right? Remember that we're creating a TypeScript application and we need to transpile that into actual JavaScript. So how are we going to do that? We're going to create a new script also, right? Called build. So what this script is going to do is just going to call the TypeScript command line, tsc, right? Here on this folder, right? So let's see if it works, right? npm run build. It's gonna run the tsc command, which is gonna transpile that the application based on the ts config.json. So he did that. Now we have under this folder, we have app, we have middleware, and we have types, right? Perfect. Now if we want to start the application, remember, we switch the start to node this app. We're not going to use node one anymore. We're actually going to keep that script for development. Let's call this dev. And this was nomon source app.ts, right? Just for development purposes, that's gonna be kept there. So if we're gonna do npm start, he's gonna start a server in the port 3000, right? And if we go back to this, I'm able to perform my queries, right? It's running the same application just with JavaScript. I'm gonna post this. Oh, we don't have the header here. So if I have set the header here to the post request, it's gonna be able to post, right? Okay, so let's double check this. app.js. He's taking the port 3000. One thing to notice here, guys, this actually uses the variable in Elastic that is on the port, right? env.port or 3000 if that variable is not set, because locally is not set, right? But in Elastic is set to the 3000. Okay, next thing that we're gonna do, when we upload applications to Elastic, we have the options to tell Elastic to run certain commands. In this case, when we upload an application, he has like two ways of loading files to Elastic, right? He can upload the complete folder, the complete Git, the last Git commit. That's what he does. He picks the last Git commit and upload that version to the repository. Or we can create a file called evignore in order to tell them which files are going to upload and which is not going to upload. I always like to use the Git version, the Git strategy, because it pushes always the last commit that I have, right? So in this case, that leads to two things. First of all, if you want changes to be reflected when you do the deployment, you have to commit your changes to your local repository, right? Even if you're deploying for your local computer, you have to commit those changes, right? The second thing is that it will not upload files that are ignored by Git, right? Like one example of this is the this folder, right? When we created the git ignore, we tell them that the this folder, which is the result of the translation by Typescript, is not included there. So we are uploading all the source code, but we're not uploading the actual JavaScript application. So how do we fix that? So remember that I told you that Elastic is pretty, extensible. It has a lot of configuration options. Well, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna tell via a configuration file that once you upload the code, you're gonna do the transpilation of the application in order to make it, work. For doing that, we first create this folder called EV extensions, right? And in the EV extension, you put a set of configuration files that are the files that are going to change the behavior or the normal behavior of the environment. So within this, I just create a .config file. It could be any name that you want. Usually put numbers in order to make it run in order. And then we create a YAML file with a .config extension, right? So it takes this special key called container commands, and it takes a set of names that you can use for running a command. Right now, I'm not going to go through the whole explanation of this. It should be pretty obvious for the code on the screen. It's first going to install the dependencies, and then it's going to run the npm run build. And then it's going to continue its cycle of deployment, which ends into running the npm start script, right? So that's the other thing that we have to do. So let's test if this works, right? We git status. Remember, you have to commit this. I'm not gonna commit my credentials, so just gonna put this into the git ignore file. Make sure that everything is in order there. I'm gonna make a commit. Call this AWS Elastic deployment. So I commit that. I list the applications that I have here, and I'm going to do a deployment to this environment, right? Sorry, I list the environments. So I'm going to deploy my applications to this. So again, it's going to take a few minutes. Let's try to fast forward this. All right. Okay, next step will be we find our environment variables, right? And we just copy this and we're gonna say EB set EMB, right? First of all, this, and then this. We need to quote this because it has some special characters, right? So we quote this, we quote also secret, and we set the environment variables, right? Charge the secret for the token and the URI for the database. So let's fast this forward to. All right, we set the environment variables. We check the status of the environment. Everything is good. So let's get it open. All right, hello world. So how do we test this that everything went well? So we take this URL, we go to our Insomnia app, and let's do this. Let's change the localhost 3000 for the host of the app. So we send this, it's the same secret, and now it seems to be working. If we get the GET request, we switch all this, we get it, we still get the tags that we have in our database. The same thing if we switch the login button, the login web service, we switch this, we're gonna get a new token working properly. All right, so this is pretty simple. This is how you deploy an app on an NodeJS and Typescript app in the Elastic Beanstalk platform. Just to summarize, we create the build config with the scripts. We change the package.json to get the build script and the start script. We set the environment variables. We create the credentials for being able to manipulate the EB CLI. We create the app, we create the environment, and we deploy. Those are the simple steps. So remember guys, if you're enjoying these videos, make sure to hit the like button, make any comments that you want to make regarding this video or something that you want to see in new videos. Make sure to hit the subscribe to get notifications when I release a new video, and make sure to share this with someone who you think that this could be beneficial. See you next time.